It is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. That the only thing we have to fear is...
Today's show is brought to you by Pekarsky Orthodontics. Dr. Pekarsky has been voted by New Jersey Monthly Magazine as the top orthodontist in 2011 and 2012. Dr. Pekarsky has two great locations, one in Wayne, New Jersey at 150 Hinchman Ave. Their telephone number is 973-942-0900. And also visit him at his new location at 5677 Berkshire Valley Road in Oak Ridge, New Jersey. Their telephone number is 973-545-2391. And also visit them on their website at www.karskyortho.com today.
Welcome back to AutismRadio.org, home of the world's first autism support radio network and proud 501c3 charitable organization, helping families challenged with autism every day get services they desperately need. Please help us make a difference in the autism community and find it in your heart to support 1 in 88 families in America today. Donate directly at autismdonation.org. Now, stay tuned for a special broadcast of Hope Saves the Day with autism activist, super dad and author of the Spectrum Diet, Master Chef and the Hope Man himself, your host, Paul Simmons.
It's great to be back on another edition of Hope Saves the Day. Thank you for that great introduction. As always, we have a great guest today who is the founder of Safely Back Home, which is an innovative program in a partnership with Project Lifesaver. And it can really give additional peace of mind to families and caregivers of people who wander. And today we have on the air a very special guest, Mr. Paul Jetter, the creator and founder. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
You know, Paul, I want to tell your journey about how you kind of got to this point, a little bit about yourself, and how this all kind of came about.
Okay. It goes back about 5 years. My father came down with dementia. He was 84. He was very active with his own electrical control business and worked every day of his life. And one day he was driving back home and he got disoriented. And it was the start of his dementia. And what he did is he did not go to work the next day, which was shocking. And I stayed home, and my sister became his caregiver at his home in East Brunswick. And it became a little too much for her after a while. My brother came and helped her as the caregiver. And I'd visit every weekend along with my family. And I started reading about what happens with dementia and Alzheimer's, and one thing that happens over time is that people start to wander. And my dad, my brother, was wonderful with my father as far as keeping him very physically active. He'd take him to parks, he would take him to stores, on walks, encourage him to stay outside. And it did cross my mind that if my dad's condition, or when my dad's condition started to deteriorate, that there could be the risk for him wandering. And on top of that, as his condition would worsen, he'd get to the point where he wouldn't remember his name and he wouldn't be able to say where he lived. And so I looked into programs that were out there specifically for folks who wander who have dementia. And there was a number of good programs, but they all required that you wear a bracelet of some sort. And I knew that he would be resistant to wearing the bracelet. And that's where this all started, as far as figuring out an alternative for him wearing a bracelet. And what I came up with was a visual, something very simple. What I imagined was his wandering in his own neighborhood, just going a few blocks away. I pictured the neighbors really wouldn't know him because he was working all the time. And if he was at the point where he had, no longer knew his own name or where he lived, and the neighbor found him, what could be done so that the neighbor could help him to get him back to the house? And the visual that I came up with was simply to have on the garment that he was wearing some sort of identification that was discreet, but that would enable the neighbor to be able to either call us or call the police. But not only that, have some type of identification so they'd know this was my father, this was Mr. Jetter, and this is where he lived. And that's how it all started, Paul. It's evolved over time, over the years. What happened is I learned, as I was learning about wandering and I learned about Project Lifesaver, I learned that it was not limited to folks with Alzheimer's or dementia, that it was an issue with people who living with autism, that wandering was also an issue. And it's evolved over time so that we have now garments, the Safely Back Home garments in partnership with Project Lifesaver. We'll get into that.
Yeah, Paul, one of the things, a very important point is like, if he's wandering in his own neighborhood, somebody sees this person, especially if it's a strange person, I was just thinking in my mind, most people don't like to get involved,
Correct.
or they'll call the police right away, or they just close the door and they just don't even bother.
Exactly.
But if they have some kind of identification, like you were talking about ID, that can really help someone who's maybe on the verge of helping. I mean, there's been many times, I'm sure, in everybody's lives where you're at a moment where you want to help, but you're kind of like not sure if you should intervene or not.
Right.
And this kind of, I would think, gives people a little more confidence to say, okay, you know what, I can help this person, especially if they're aware of what it's about. And I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, well, the part that you said is still going to hold true. I think as far as the number of us who are going to actually, go up and approach that person. And it's just it's just the way life is these days. And I pictured that. I kind of picture a mall setting in a regular shopping mall. And a person, whether it's a kid or whether it's a senior, is clearly disoriented and appears to be lost. And if there are 100 people who are going to take note of that, most of us are going to mind our own business because we're going to feel that, that person's family will take care of him or the mall police is going to take care of them. And I figure out of 100, maybe 85 of us will just mind our own business, just normal. And there's a small percentage, the police have told me, that there will always be some criminal intent. So out of 100 people, there may be 2%, 1%, 3%. They may see an older guy there, we can maybe take him to an ATM and that sort of thing. So these are folks who have criminal intent who are there to begin with. And then there are what we call the Good Samaritans, which is maybe 10%, maybe more. And that's what we're talking about, people who want to help this person, who would approach the person. And usually the person's going to be nervous, whether it's a kid or an adult. And when they approach them, to have something that is printed on the sleeve where there's a phone number to call, the Good Samaritan is going to be focused enough that they'll be able to, they want to help the person, they'll call that number. And this is the difference with Safely Back Home versus 911. If the person is lost, wherever they are, the usual response is to call 911. And that's what we all do. So it's fine if 911 shows up, the police show up. If the person does not have any identification or is unable to say who they are or where they live, that's where the challenge arises, because then that person is brought back to the police station. And it could be several hours, some cases days, until they're reunited with their family. And that was part of the thinking that went into my thinking as to what sort of identification there could be. So you're not going to have that long period where the person cannot be identified.
Paul, one of the things I wanted to ask is, how does this actually work for a parent if they want to know what Safely Back Home is? I mean, what can you tell them how it works for them?
Okay. Well, we have a website, but the safelyBackHome.com. But the way it works, there's two ways that it works, Paul. And the simplest way, we have an event that's taking place this week. The simplest way is where families, we're doing an on-site printing event this week, on-site, where I've spoken with a lot of support groups, and a lot of parents have told me, and caregivers have told me that their family members like to wear the same garment all the time, or same garments, days and weeks at a time. And could we print this emergency contact information on those garments? And we're going to do that now, where we have our first event taking place in Sparta, Sussex County. We'll be doing it in other counties, other months. But what will happen is families are going to bring in garments that their family member wears, favorite, and it could be anything from a winter coat to a T-shirt to a hat. And we're going to be professionally imprinting this. We use an imprint that's very soft, so it feels just as soft as the fabric. And the families will tell us what emergency contact phone number they want imprinted on the garment and where. And it'll have the Safely Back Home logo above it, which is a logo. It's Safely Back Home. It's almost self-explanatory with that name. And then if the family wants, they can personalize it further. If they want it to say something like, if I appear lost, please call, and then the emergency number. And it's a relatively small, discreet imprint that can be on the sleeve. It can be printed wherever the family wants. And it's just one added layer of protection. If their family member wanders in public, gets lost, if the public, if there's someone concerned in the public who wants to help, or if it's the police. If the police find the person and there's a phone number to contact, they'll call that number, and then the family is reunited. So that is that's the basic offering through Safely Back Home, is where families decide what emergency contact phone number they want imprinted on the garment, and if they want an expression, a phrase to go with it, and it has the Safely Back Home logo on it. So that's the most basic thing, and we're doing that on site. We will be offering it through the website as well, but that kind of leads into our partnership with Project Lifesaver International. However you want to discuss that, Paul, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I mean that's a big jump. I mean to start, from where you started now with Project Lifesaver, which is the largest, basically track and control device in the country that
right.
has safely returned so many people home that wandered.
Right.
Obviously they saw a need and a want for what you're doing as an added extra safety net
right.
to the whole program. How did that come about?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Is last year, I've always been trying to get feedback from support groups and also police as to how the program should develop to meet the needs of the folks out there. And the Project Lifesaver, I had read about Project Lifesaver, and I was drawn to them because, number one, of their credibility. They've rescued nearly 3,000 people over since 1999. But also the thoughtfulness that goes into their program. They, when people enroll in Project Lifesaver, they include their name, a photograph, their contact information, medical information, but also they have specific. They ask the caregiver to say what expressions, what phrases will that family member respond to when they're about to be rescued? What will keep them calm? And I was very impressed with that, and I was also very impressed that Project Lifesaver, when the equipment, they supply the equipment to the sheriff's departments all around the country. They go out to that sheriff's department and they train the sheriff's officers in how to interact with people who have autism or people who have Alzheimer's. It's very impressive. And so I met with a few sheriff's departments here in New Jersey, and they suggested to me that I contact Chief Saunders directly, because they liked the idea and they thought that the chief may have interest in that. And so I did contact him. It was back in November it was a year ago. And Chief Saunders invited me to go down there, and I met with him in Florida, and we spoke for a long time. And and he saw just exactly what you said. He saw that this is it's how I presented it to him, is to complement the radio transmitters that they use now, that having the garments would be just another tool, basically. And he was very fast to move on that. He used that Skype technology to get in touch with his folks in Virginia and show them the garments that I brought. And then things moved along very quickly. And in March we became partners. And then this summer they began offering the garments, the Project Lifesaver International Safely Back Home garments, on their website through their store. And so people who are enrolled in Project Lifesaver, there are about 50,000 across the country, are able to order the garments. And the garments, the imprint on the garment has the same information that it has the Project Lifesaver phone number, where with the agency they're registered. It has their ID number as well, imprinted on the garment. So if they're lost, and whether they're wearing the device or not, the transmitter, the public would call the Project Lifesaver phone number. It's a 24-hour number. They'd give the ID number of that person, and they immediately, Project Lifesaver in their secure database has all the information on that person. Either they would send out an officer for the rescue, or they'd contact the department wherever the person is lost, and they would forward that file. The key being that when an officer shows up to rescue the person, they already know all about the person. They know the contact the family, they know the medical information, and they know how to approach them, how to speak to them. So it was a very good fit, and we're just really getting started in introducing that. And then we're also offering it to everyone else who's not enrolled in Project Lifesaver, anyone who's affected by wandering. And that's the autism community, it's the Alzheimer's community, it's other cognitive disabilities where wandering is a factor. And it's open to everyone. The difference being that the phone number that is going to be listed on the garment will be the emergency contact number the family states. Usually it'll be their cell phone number or their home number or both. And it'll be imprinted on, it's available through, it's usually going to be the outermost garment someone's wearing, but, kids will run out with whatever they're wearing. So it's their shirts, their sweatshirts, their hoodies, their hats that are new that can be ordered through Project Lifesaver. Project Lifesaver is a nonprofit organization. Safely Back Home is going through the filing process to become a nonprofit. We've tried to keep the garments affordable. And if someone is not enrolled in Project Lifesaver, they can still get these garments. But again, the phone number will be the phone number the family says is the emergency contact number, rather than a Project Lifesaver phone number. That's where it stands right now. So folks can order through the Project Lifesaver website. They can also have access, Project Lifesaver International, I should say, Project Lifesaver .org. I should double check on that. And also safelyBackHome.com brings you to their website. And now, what we're doing now, Paul, is we're trying these on-site printing events. And so families are going to bring in clothing of their family member. We're going to imprint it on the spot and keep it very affordable, between $11 and $13 to do it. So it's affordable for the garments. And And we want to have it set up very soon where people can send in their garments, send in their family garments to Safely Back Home. We will imprint them and send them back to the folks. But we want to be able to do it in a timely way so they're not, missing those garments for too long. So that's kind of what's happened. Things have moved along fairly quickly once we started with Project Lifesaver, and it's still in its infancy. Safely Back Home is in its infancy. The process it's a patent-pending process that we're doing. And there are other features to it, Paul, that I didn't really go into with it. I haven't discussed with you, but where we can use QR codes. We're not doing that yet, but where we can also use these RFID devices, which are the little chips that can be embedded into the garments. They require a scanner. But that's going, we're keeping it very basic right now, where it's an imprint on a garment with a phone number. And in the case of Project Lifesaver, where there's an ID number. And the bottom line is if somebody gets lost and someone that's in the public is concerned wants to help, there's a way to quickly, expeditiously help in a way that that lost person is going to be reunited with their family. And it works with the public, works with the police.
No, that's terrific, Paul.
That's it. Yeah,
that's really, really remarkable what you've done. And, one of the things I had a question, and how'd you come up with the name Safely Back Home? I just love that. I actually really love that.
I hate to give credit to my sister. I love her dearly, but it was my sister who came up with that. There were many different. In fact, I had a community college near where I live. They had a class who was working on names for the program, and I wanted to keep it general as I could, and that name was not taken, fortunately. So we've gone to register that name, and that's how it came up. I have to give my sister credit on that if she's listening. So that's where the name came from.
I think it's wonderful. Actually, I think it's just a great name. When you really think about it, it's like one of the biggest fears of having either a child with autism or having a father or grandfather with dementia. We want them back home safe. When we have that panic moment, like, oh my God,
right.
Are they coming home? And I just think it's just a great motto. It's just I just like that. I kind of fell in love with the name from day one when I met you a few years ago. I have been lucky enough to meet Paul at one of the New Jersey autism conferences. So it was great. But you're doing great work, Paul, and I see there's such a need for this, and then, like I said, it's such a niche that works in with the Project Lifesaver program, which is a phenomenal program. Like I said, you were saying earlier, over 3,000 individuals have been safely brought back home. I'm using your catchphrase there.
Well, they've been rescued.
But that's just great. I mean, it's truly remarkable and amazing what you're doing. And one last thing before we go, I wanted to just know how can families help, like, kind of, I don't know, get involved with Safely Back Home, or to help, what can they do to help this grow too, because there is such a need for it as well. Is there anything anyone can do to help, Paul?
That's a good question, Paul. The channels that I've been going through so far have been support groups that I've met with. As far as families go, schools go, organizations go, what we're doing is open to everyone, and so if anyone obviously wants the garments, we're happy to fulfill that for them, and we'll have more materials that I guess can be distributed and over the internet and that sort of thing. We're just in our infancy right now, and what you're doing right now, Paul, with this interview is tremendous help and encouragement for me. But to answer your question, how can other parents help on this? It's just to take a look at it, see if it makes sense to them for their child if they'd like to have this done. But I'll have to get back to you on another program as to how else parents can help with the program.
Well, absolutely. We'd love to have you come back, Paul, on our program. And I just think what you're doing is very remarkable and commendable. What you're doing, all your time and your efforts and your own money obviously put into this, involved, and, you're doing this all on your voluntary time, to do this is great.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be on the program, and I admire very much what you're doing, very much so. So, thanks for having me on today.
You're very welcome. We really want to thank Paul Jetter for taking the time out to talk about this great program that he founded called Safely Back Home, which really is going to make a difference. I really feel there's a need. And if there's anybody out there that wants to get in touch with Paul, you can go on his website, which is safelybackhome.com, Paul, if I make sure I got that right. And we're going to put all the links on autismradio.org and also some information about the Safely Back Home program, who works together with the Project Lifesaver International, just doing a phenomenal job. Just you're basically taking everything to another step, Paul, with this, and it's great. And we commend you for that. And we look forward to seeing what the future is going to bring with Safely Back Home to the community to really help. Like you said, the slogan is safely get our loved ones back home, and that's great.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and it's a great opportunity. This is still growing. We'll keep building it, and again, thank you very much for the opportunity today.
Well, you're very welcome, and again, we want to thank Paul Jetter for taking out the time, and please be sure to visit safelybackhome.com and learn more about it. And like I said again, we'll put the link also on the autismradio.org's website, so you'll be able to get the link right there and go right to Paul Jetter's page and learn more about the Safely Back program, and also Project Lifesaver International, which is also a wonderful program. So if you haven't heard of that yet, also we have a link on there on the autismradio.org website as well. We'd like to thank all the listeners for the continued support. As always, it's been outstanding. We love doing this show every week and bringing you some great information and bringing you some tools. I like to call it my tools in my toolbox for you parents at home. And Paul does bring that to you with this program, Safely Back Home. So remember, until next time, everyone, have a great week. And remember, hope saves the day. Goodbye, everyone.
Every time I see your smile, I wonder what you feel. Every time you laugh or cry, I wonder if it's real. You seem trapped inside. Please help me understand. What is your world like? I want to feel your love. I want to know what it's like to laugh and play. Imagine a thought that you cannot feel, a tear trapped inside. Imagine a sound that you cannot make, no matter how hard you try. I want you to know how I'm feeling. I want you to know how it feels to be me. I wish you could look into my world and see how I see. Hold my hand and remind me to hold on to hope each day. Let this song be my voice. And remember, hope saves the day. To show you what I see, what kind of life will I have, what's in store for me. Don't be afraid, just love and hold me. I can be all that I can be. With your love I can do anything. With your love I can see there world. Like rays of light shine upon me, inside of me. Then you are right by my side. I will love you till the end of time. Hold my hand and remind me to hold on to hope each day. Let this song be my voice. And remember, hope saves the day.